You have a vision that keeps you up at night, and the people closest to you think you've lost your mind. That gap between what God placed in your heart and what everyone else can see, it's exhausting. You're carrying something that feels too big for your hands, too heavy for your shoulders, and too crazy to explain out loud. By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why that weight is proof you're the right person to carry it. Nehemiah was a cupbearer. Think about that for a second. He served wine to a king in a palace hundreds of miles from Jerusalem. He had a comfortable position, steady income, proximity to power. And one day, his brother Hanani showed up with news that broke him. The walls of Jerusalem were rubble. The gates were burned. The people living there were exposed, humiliated, vulnerable to anyone who wanted to harm them. Nehemiah chapter 1, verse 4. When I heard these things, I sat down and wept. For some days, I mourned and fasted and prayed before the God of heaven. He wept. A grown man with a government job sat down and cried over a city he hadn't visited in years. That reaction tells you everything about what God had already been doing inside him. The vision didn't start with a blueprint, and here's what separates Nehemiah from someone who just feels bad about a problem. He prayed for 4 months before he said a single word to anyone about what he wanted to do. 4 months. Can you picture holding something that urgent inside your chest for that long? Most of us get a vision on Monday and want to launch by Friday. Nehemiah sat with his grief, sat with his God, and waited until the timing was right. When he finally approached King Artaxerxes, his hands were shaking. Nehemiah chapter 2 verse 2 says, I was very much afraid. The man with the God-given vision, the months of prayer behind him, the clear calling on his life, was terrified. Your fear and your calling can occupy the same room. They usually do. But he asked anyway, and the king gave him everything. Letters of safe passage, timber from the royal forest, an armed escort. God had been working on the king's heart during those same 4 months Nehemiah spent on his knees. You're praying about your vision, and God is simultaneously softening the hearts of people you haven't even approached yet. The preparation is happening on both sides of the conversation. Nehemiah arrived in Jerusalem and did something brilliant. Before he announced anything publicly, he rode out at night to inspect the damage himself. Chapter 2, verses 12 through 16. He went alone in the dark and looked at every broken section with his own eyes. He counted the cost before he cast the vision. So many people do this backward. They announce what they're going to build before they've measured what's actually broken. Nehemiah touched the rubble with his own hands first. Then he gathered the people and said something that changed everything. Chapter 2, verse 18. I also told them about the gracious hand of my God on me and what the king had said to me. They replied, let us start rebuilding. He didn't just share a plan, he shared evidence. He showed them God's fingerprints on the journey so far. And the people responded because faith is contagious when it comes with proof of God's movement. The work began, and almost immediately so did the opposition. Sanballat and Tobiah, 2 local officials with political power and personal grudges, started with mockery. Nehemiah chapter 4 verse 2. What are those feeble Jews doing? Will they restore their wall? Can they bring the stones back to life from those heaps of rubble? Tobiah added his own jab in verse 3. What they are building, even a fox climbing up on it, would break down their wall of stones. Feel the contempt in those words. They weren't attacking the plan. They were attacking the people, calling them feeble, saying even a small animal could destroy their work. This is the kind of opposition that gets inside your head because it targets your identity. You can argue against someone who disagrees with your strategy. How do you argue against someone who says you're too weak to pull it off? Nehemiah's response is a masterclass. He didn't fire back. He didn't defend himself. Chapter 4, verse 4. Hear us, our God, for we are despised. He took the insult straight to God. He converted the mockery into fuel for prayer. Every name they called him, every joke they made, became another reason to press his face into the ground and ask God to defend what God had started. The wall kept rising, and the opposition escalated. Sanballat and Tobiah recruited allies. They planned an actual military attack. They spread rumors designed to create fear and division among the workers. They even hired a false prophet to try to lure Nehemiah into a trap inside the temple, a move designed to discredit him spiritually. The attacks came from every angle: psychological, military, political, spiritual. So what did Nehemiah do? He armed the builders. Chapter 4, verse 17. Those who carried materials did their work with one hand and held a weapon in the other. Picture that image. A man holding a trowel in one hand and a sword in the other, building and defending at the same time. That's what your season looks like right now. And you thought something was wrong because you're exhausted. You're doing two jobs simultaneously. You're constructing something beautiful while fighting off everything trying to tear it down. The fatigue makes sense. Nehemiah also reorganized the workforce so that half the men stood guard while the other half built. He stationed families together along the wall so they'd fight harder because people protect what belongs to them with a different kind of ferocity. He told them in chapter 4, verse 14, "Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your families, your sons and your daughters, your wives and your homes." The vision was always bigger than a wall. The wall was about protection, dignity, identity. It was about a people saying to the world, "We are still here, and our God is still with us." Your vision carries that same weight. Whatever you're building, the ministry, the business, the family, the creative work, it's a declaration that God is active in your life. The enemy knows that, which is why he sends mockery first and threats second. Here's where the story gets breathtaking. Nehemiah chapter 6, verse 15. So the wall was completed on the 25th of Elul in 52 days. A wall that had been rubble for decades, that professional critics said couldn't be rebuilt, that faced armed opposition from multiple enemies, finished in under 2 months. Verse 16 tells you the result. When all our enemies heard about this and all the surrounding nations saw it, our enemies lost their self-confidence because they realized that this work had been done with the help of our God. They lost their confidence. They looked at what had been accomplished and knew in their bones, that something beyond human effort had produced it. That's what happens when you build under God's direction, despite the voices telling you to quit. The finished product carries a signature that can't be explained by talent or luck alone. So what does Nehemiah's wall mean for your vision? Your grief is the starting point. That thing that breaks your heart when you look at it, the problem you can't stop thinking about, the gap that keeps you awake, that ache is God's invitation. He doesn't call the comfortable, he calls the burdened. Your preparation season matters more than your launch date. Nehemiah prayed for 4 months before he spoke up. If you're in a waiting season right now, God is working angles you can't see. He's preparing resources, softening hearts, arranging circumstances. Your job during the wait is prayer, and prayer during the wait is itself the work. Your opposition is confirmation. Nobody organizes an attack against something that poses no threat. Sanballat and Tobiah went to extraordinary lengths to stop a wall. Walls meant security. Security meant stability. Stability meant a thriving community that would shift the power dynamics of the entire region. Your vision threatens someone's status quo, and that someone will push back. Expect it, plan for it, pray through it. You'll need to build with one hand and fight with the other. This is the part nobody puts on the motivational poster. The vision requires simultaneous construction and defense. You'll be creating something while protecting it from criticism, doubt, betrayal, and spiritual attack. This demands a level of endurance that only comes from daily dependence on God. There are no shortcuts through this phase, only faithfulness. Critics often say the most about what they understand the least. Tobiah said a fox could knock the wall down. 52 days later, that wall stood so strong that the enemy's own confidence crumbled. The people mocking your vision have never built what God is asking you to build. Their expertise is in observation. An observation without participation produces arrogance dressed up as insight. Nehemiah didn't build alone. He organized families, delegated sections of the wall, positioned people according to their strengths. Your vision will require community. The lone hero narrative is a lie the enemy sells to isolate you. Find your builders. Station your family near you. Let people fight alongside you. And when the wall is done, when the thing God put in your heart stands finished and everyone can see it, the testimony won't be about your skill. Chapter 6, verse 16 makes this unmistakable. The nations looked at the wall and realized the work had been done with the help of God. Your completed vision becomes evidence of His faithfulness. You're standing in front of rubble right now. Maybe the rubble is a dream that fell apart. Maybe it's a calling that everyone says is impossible. Maybe it's a broken place in your family, your church, your community that nobody else seems willing to rebuild. Nehemiah looked at that same kind of devastation and wept. Then he prayed. Then he planned. Then he built. Pick up your trowel. Keep your sword close. The wall is waiting for you.